So, okay. So, hello everyone. I'm Patrick, and I'm Patsito on all the social network. I'm a web dev freelancing, and I'm going to introduce you to Angular. So, how many people here are familiar with Angular already? Okay, you just heard of it, or you actually use it? You actually use it? Who uses it like a lot? Okay, so it's an intro, right? So a brief history. So it was created by Miško Hevery, who is an engineer at Google. So this guy used to work for Intel and Sun on hardware actually, and then he decided to move on to Google, and he fell in love with the web platform, and what Miško realized is that the problem with the web platform is that building complex stuff was actually difficult, because even the easy stuff when it comes to web is complicated. And I don't know if you remember, but like a couple of years ago, even last year, like every month or every week, there was a new JavaScript framework being created all the time. So at Google, Miško will wonder if maybe there was some boilerplate that could be integrated right into the browser rather than always having to rewrite all the stuff in a new framework. So this is why he decided to build Angular. And so there was a project at Google that was called Google Feedback, and it was written in 6 months. It took like 17,000 lines of code. And Miško, who was working on Angular, he said, I could rewrite this like in 2 weeks. And he actually failed because it took him 3 weeks, and he did it in only 1,000 line of code. So what is Angular trying to fix? So first of all, what is great with HTML is that it's very declarative. So if, for example, you want to print a paragraph, all you have to do is you write the paragraph tag, and it gets interpreted by the browser, and it's great. However, if you want to write dynamic code, like the same hello world in dynamic code, with JavaScript you have to write a whole lot of code. Like first you have to listen to the load event, then you have to select the HTML element and then assign it the value, and you also have to check for the browser. So it's like it's not declarative at all. It's totally imperative. So of course you're going to say, well, there is jQuery, so who cares, right? And it's true that jQuery is awesome. It's definitely the best library if you want to manipulate the DOM, update it, change it, whatever. But it's still using an imperative syntax. So what would be great? The goal of Angular is to make writing dynamic apps declarative. Okay, so just like you have this when you're writing static code in HTML, it would be great if you could have that, right? So to give you a more concrete example, well, first, this is done using data binding. So I guess most of you are familiar with this concept. The goal of data binding is basically you create your model, you assign it to an element or a template, and when you update the templates, the model gets updated automatically, and vice versa. When the user interacts with the UI, the model gets updated. Okay. And to give you an idea, let's see this example with jQuery. I'm sure everyone here is familiar with jQuery, right? Who doesn't use jQuery here? Okay. So here we have a basic example, right? Where if I type text here, okay, it gets printed in a paragraph. Okay. So as you can see with jQuery, the syntax is very pretty, but still it's very imperative. So what do we need to do here? First, we need to select the input where the user enters data. Then we have to select the paragraph where we want to print this input. Then we have to listen to the key up element, and finally we have to select the paragraph and insert the HTML inside. Okay, so it's still it's great because the syntax is much simpler than it used to be, but it's still very imperative. So with Angular, here's the same example. Okay. So the great thing here is that basically you just use data mining. So you create your model called here your name. You assign it to the input, and then you call it in the paragraph. Okay. And you don't have to select any elements. You don't have to do any DOM manipulation, because Angular just see that you've created a model and that you're calling it somewhere, and so it updates the element automatically. Okay. There is no need to do anything. So that's cool. So data binding is great because it's very simple, as we just seen in this example. It's easy to recognize it, and it looks like HTML. Actually, if you look at this example, you can see that Angular, it doesn't use any templating. Actually, the templating language of Angular, it's HTML with extra HTML attributes. Okay, but there is nothing, no logic, nothing. And so, how does this work? So, it uses technique, uses dirty checking, and it's very optimized. It only checks the current view. It only checks where the change might happen, and it leverages the GIT. Actually, the Angular team, they work directly with the Chrome team, so they optimize Angular to be as fast as possible. But it's true that the DOM is kind of slow. So there is a web standard that is being created that is called model-driven views and object observe. So with this new web standard, you will be able to, Angular will be able to be very fast, even if you're using a lot of data binding. And that's the great thing with Angular. Is just the goal of Angular was really to see the boilerplate and the most common concepts that are being built in every single JavaScript library, and try to implement them in the browser as web standard. So when you're learning Angular, you're kind of learning the future of JavaScript, at least concept-wise. Okay, so and it's not only Chrome. I mean, the Angular team is working directly with Chrome, but it's being implemented in official web standard, and Mozilla is working on it too. So it's not only a Google thing. And there's actually already, on GitHub, there's a branch that already uses one of these standards. Okay. So as we've just seen, HTML is great because it's declarative, but there's the problem. Well, you can do beautiful widget with HTML. I don't know if anyone here uses Bootstrap. Who uses Bootstrap here? Okay. You can do beautiful stuff here without knowing how to write HTML, CSS, although you should know how to write. You can do it. However, the problem is that you're kind of tricking the browser when you write this stuff, because here, for example, I'm writing a widget with tabs, right? And I'm actually using a list to display tabs. So it's if you read this piece of code, you cannot guess at all that you're writing a tab widget, right? Like for example, in the previous example, in order to write the paragraph, we used the paragraph tag, so it was logical. You read this code, you understand it in the instant. However, in this instance, there is no way to understand what's going on here. You have to visualize in the browser, and you actually end up understanding, but it's very difficult. And so, wouldn't it be great if you could write declarative HTML even when you're building big widgets? For example, here, if you're writing a tab widget, it would be great if you could use a tab tag and paint tabs. Okay, and this way, here you can see on this side, like you understand the code immediately. You don't have to visualize it in the browser. You know that it's tabs, and it's more logical. So with Angular, you can write all kind of custom tags, and for example, custom tabs, a tab tag, a Google Map tags, Nevada tags, and you can, when you read your HTML, it's actually much more readable. You immediately understand what you're writing. And don't worry, this is not a Google thing. It's actually a standard tool. So you can use it already right now if you're using Angular. In Angular, it's called directive, okay? But in standard, it's called web components. So I guess you've all heard a little about this. It's a big standard, and will allow you to write custom tags like that, okay? And actually, Mozilla already, there's a guy at Mozilla that already write a polyfill for this. It's called xtags. You can go to xtag.org and use this library if you want. And it's a W3C specs. So Angular is really huge. There is everything you can do. Data binding, as you can see, templating. It also supports routing, testing, form validation, dependency injection, translation. And there was some fighting in. Some people didn't agree whether it was MVC or MVVC or whatever. So the creator of Angular, he said, let's just call it MVW, which is model view, whatever. So you can call it whatever you want. So I'm going to do a little code demo, okay? And so I'm using Yeoman. Anyone here know about Yeoman? Yeah. So Yeoman is it's a tool that helps you build front-end apps. Okay. So this apps in particular is it's the basic to-do list. So here I have my list of to-dos here, and here I can add new to-dos. Okay. And we're going to see how to build this with Angular. So as you can see here, you can recognize basic HTML. So I have my list of to-dos. Okay. And yeah, so I'm going to open my controller. Okay. Okay. Can you see the code? Yeah. So I'm going to create. First of all, I'm going here to put my name here. Okay. So I'm going to put my name like this. So the scope is like it adds context. It allows you to define variables in your controller, and you can use these variables in your views. Okay. So here I just call my variable that I've just defined in my controller. Okay. And yay. Okay. So now you can see my name here. So now let's here. I have this static list of to-dos. I'm going to write to make it dynamic, all right? So I just go to my controller again. Okay. And I'm going to call it to-dos. And so this is just an array. And I will put so the text here. So the first one is introduce Angular, and I will assign it to one of my minions, which is here, Igor. Okay. And here I'm going to define the other one. And I'm going to assign it to Mishko. And finally, the last one. Okay. So now I come back to my view, and here, so for now I have my static list of to-dos, and I'm going to make it dynamic. So in order to do so, I'm going to use a directive. So a directive is the web component that I've shown you before. So a directive can be either a custom tag or a custom attribute or a class. So in this case, I'm going to use a directive that comes with Angular, which is called engine repeat, which allows you to loop in arrays. So for each to-do in my to-dos array, I'm going to print the name of the to-do guy and the text. Okay, well, it's the same thing, but you get the idea. Okay, so now as you can see, it's generated dynamically using Angular, the Angular directive called engine repeat. All right. So now we're going to see how to add a new to-do. Okay. So let's define a function. So this is another directive that comes with Angular. It's called engine submit. It is executed when you submit the form. And here I'm going to create a model called new to do a text. So this will hold the text of my new to do, and this will hold the name of the guy that is assigned to the to do. Okay, so all right. So now I need to write this function, but first let's define here which to do it has already been done. So in order to do this, I will just open here, and I will add a new attribute called done. Okay. For example, this one is going to be true. This one false, and this one false. And here, for each input, I'm going to bind it to the to-do done attribute. So now, as you can see, the first to-do is already checked because his done value is done, so it's already checked. And I can do some cool stuff. For example, in my CSS, I have this done to class here, okay, which has a line through attribute. And what I'm going to do is here I'm going to assign this class. And here I'm going to use the to-do attribute, in my model. So when it's true, the class is going to be called done true, and when it's false, well, it's going to be called done false. All right. So now, when I click here, it assigns the class automatically, and as you can see, once again, there is no need to do any kind of data DOM manipulation. Thanks to data binding, it automatically updates the view. Yeah, so now let's see how to add a new to-do. So I'm going to my controller again, and here, so let's define a function. So first, I'm going to set the done value to false because I don't want my new to-do to be done. Okay, and then I'm simply going to push it into my to-dos array, like this. All right. So basically, in Angular, what's great is that it doesn't. You use regular JavaScript function and regular object and arrays, so you can use just regular JavaScript methods such as push when you're manipulating your models, which is cool. And so let's give it a try. Yay. So once again, no need for DOM manipulation. And here I want this this text to be cleared after adding a new one. So I just set its value to an empty object, for example. Okay. So now when I add a new one, okay. All right. So another cool thing you can do is, well, because Angular uses basic JavaScript object and arrays and whatever, you can just, for example, here on top, I want to show up the total number of to-dos in my arrays. So I just call my controller variable here to-dos, okay, and I will call the regular JavaScript method length. And so you should be able to see the 3 here, okay. Here, if I want to show up the remaining to-dos, I can just write a function in my controller, okay. So this one I've already written. So basically, here you have your list of to-dos, and I use the reduce function, which is a basic JavaScript function to compute the number of remaining to-dos. So now it's showing up, right? And if I check all the to-dos, it updates automatically. Okay. Now we're going to see another directive that is called ng-click. So here, when I click on that link, I want something to happen. So I'm going to use the ng-click directive. So this one is it comes with Angular. So I just call my function archive, and this guy I've already written it. So here it is. Oops. So here again, I'm using a basic JavaScript function called filter to filter out the to-dos that are already done. Okay. So if I click archive here, it should delete. Okay, it deletes the to-dos that have already been done. Okay. And yeah. So as you can see, data binding and directive makes it very easy to write powerful code with very little code, and it's very easy to read and maintain. So wouldn't it be cool if instead of writing the name of the guy here, I would just put an avatar? So let's see how that would work. So here, instead of showing his name, I'm going to show an avatar of the guy. So I'm just going to define a div and a class. And here I'm going to show a picture of the guy. Yeah. And here I'm going to show his name, for example. Oops. Okay. So yeah. So here for each to-do, I'm showing the picture of the guy who's assigned to the to-do array. So for example. Okay. So now this is the kind of widget that you would want to reuse in your application. The avatar, you usually use it everywhere, so you don't want to rewrite this code all the time. So wouldn't it be great if you could just write an X tag, such as this avatar, okay? And get rid of this code so that you can reuse this stuff whenever you use it, okay? And here I will put an attribute like this. Okay, so this is a new web standard that is called X tags that allows you to write custom tags. So it's not an Angular thing only. It's a web standard that is coming to your browser. There's already a poly field that has been written by Mozilla, and you can also use them if you're using Angular. So that's pretty cool. And in order to use it, so what you do is define So what you do here is you define a directive, because in Angular these are called directive. You can pass arguments to them. So here each directive has its own scope. So you can define a variable that you can pass through attributes. So here equal is because I'm passing this attribute as this value as an attribute here. Here this is the attribute minion name. Okay. Restrict E means that it will be an element, because as I told you, a directive in Angular can be either an element or an attribute. For example, ngRepeat, it's an attribute, but in this case, I'm using my directive is defined as an element. Okay, and here I just pass the template. So I have my div, my image attribute, my image tag, my h4, and I can reuse the variable that I have defined earlier. Okay, and with this. So here I'm using, it's showing using, so this is the tag, okay. And in future version of Chrome, you can already test web components. Usually here what would happen is that what is inside the X avatar tag, it would be the shadow DOM, okay. You can test it, for example, if you test the video tag. If you right-click on it and inspect it, you can see that it's also a shadow DOM. So it's like a part of the DOM that is kind of independent. And for now, Angular emulates this behavior, but this is how it will work once it's implemented. All right. So what else? Now I'm going to show you tests, because tests are needed. So with Angular, you can use any kind of testing framework you want. It's completely agnostic, but there is a great integration with Jasmine. And one of the Angular guy called Vojta, he wrote a test runner called Karma.js, which used to be called Testacular. And what is cool with Karma is that it runs the background and it constantly checks whether your specs are running or not. Are passing or not. And another very cool thing is that it can test in whatever browser. So you can test it in Chrome, Firefox, Opera, PhantomJS, IE, and it's a very nice way to test your app, because it's all automatic and you can test it in actual browser too, and it does it all for you. So here, for example, I'm testing in Chrome only, but I could include Firefox and Opera and whatever. So let's see how what tests look like. So here I have my controller specs. So for example, here I'm checking my so here I'm checking my add to do function. So I have access to the scope in the controller, so that makes it easy to test everything. So here, for example, I define a new to-do, then I execute the add to-do function, and then I check whether the to-do list has 4 elements when you used to add 4. Okay. Then you can test all your functions like this. It's very easy, and Karma makes it awesome because it always runs in the background and it's checking every single browser. All right. So let's check. Yeah, let's run tests. So grunt, does anyone know grunts here? Yeah. So it's like it's a JS tool to run tasks. It's very powerful. You can you can write script, and it builds. You can make it build any kind of stuff. For example, here it watches your code. It reloads your browser. It compresses your assets. And Yeoman actually is built on Grunt, so it's very cool to write front-end apps. So to test, I just run Grunt test. So as you can see, it runs a Chrome version without profile, and it passes. Okay. And if I had Firefox and whatever, it would run in Chrome, Firefox, and all your browsers. So it makes it very, very convenient to test your application, and because really one of the pain points with writing web apps that Mishko had was testing, because I don't know, does anyone here used to test his jQuery code or whatever? It was a pain, right? And as you can see with Karma, it's really with Karma and Jasmine and Angular, it's really cool. It's very easy to test your app, and you kind of feel safer building front-end apps. And I think that the combination of Yeoman, Angular, Karma is really the best, in my opinion, the best way to write front-end apps. I mean, at least when it comes to testing and maintaining code, and it's really awesome. Well, if does anyone does any Rails development here? Ruby? No one. Okay. So I've written an AngularJS scaffold generator, so you can generate your basic Rails application, but instead of using Rails views, it generates your Rails controller and your AngularJS controller and etc. So it's pretty cool. All right, that's it. You can check the presentation on this link, and if anyone is interested, there is the O'Reilly book written by one of the main contributors to Angular, and there is a promo code here that you can get 40 or 50%. So you can get the book at like $8 if you want. And that's it. Thanks.